meeting
Yep.
to order.
Yep.
Salute the flag.
Dying.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I say thank you to Larissa for bringing the flag back because she had already brought it over to the school, thinking we weren't going to have any more board meetings over here. So she said, "Do we need to get the flag in?" I said, "Yeah." Otherwise, someone will complain we have the little flag.
Public comment. Seeing none. New business. Legal representation. Tracy?
Yep, actually, we have a meeting tomorrow, the kickoff meeting with expenditures with the budget committee. And actually, earlier this month, we had a meeting with, and if everybody remembers, our previous meeting with the budget committee did not go well. So I didn't want that to happen again. I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to hear from the board, what you would like from me as a board member. I want to represent everyone well. I feel I know that there's been a lot of, the budget committee is extremely adversarial with us, and I don't want to appear inept again. I had asked Jerry about a couple weeks ago about having representation. A lot of people at the budget committee level wish we had an attorney there to answer their questions as well. I don't wish to be dismissed. I don't wish to be ridiculed. I don't wish to be humiliated. Ralph, they dismissed me, called on you, and the information was incorrect. So I never even had a chance to correct it.
Pardon me?
At the,
What information was incorrect?
when they called and raised your hand, you said we had $289,000.
No, I said 236,000,
In the
almost
special-
237.
in the
sped lines,
in the
in the
sped line.
1,200 lines. That was accurate, because that was the report that was given to us that day.
Okay. So what happens is if you have $50 in your checking account, but you write a check for $50, do you have $50 in your checking account?
I don't write checks for 50.
Okay,
I don't,
that's
I
not-
don't,
my-
like-
you get my
I don't
point.
encumber things that aren't being spent.
Okay, this money was actually already accounted for.
It was
But it
encumbered,
appeared,
but it was not spent.
well, because the bill,
What
The
would you have
services-
done if they said, here, have $415,000?
Okay, I'm not- that isn't my
Let's
point.
be nice to each other
that's
first.
not my point.
One
My
at a
point
time.
is we were over by $418,000 in special ed. We are
weren't.
over by $418,000
We were
by
not,
special.
and we are not. That's misrepresenting the facts.
Oh, can I have help? Are
Would you
we?
like me to speak?
Yes, please. If it's
So,
okay.
Yeah.
everybody's right. First of all, I'm gonna say everybody's right. On the June 13th, report that was handed out at the school board meeting, the 1,200 line was over by $418,000. That is correct, on the June 13th report. When we finalized the, budget at the end of the year, the sped line, the 1,200 line was actually $414,000 in a negative. So that was a $4,000 difference from what we reported on June 13th versus what ended up being final on June 30th. We applied $105,000 of the trust fund towards the $414,000, which now, at the end of the year, instead of 418 or 414, it's 307, because $105,000 was applied from the trust fund to reduce that line, to reduce that deficit. But if we didn't apply the $105,000 of the trust fund, we would still be over on the 1,200 line by 414,000. Is that clear?
What is clear to me is the night of that presentation on June 28th, there was $236,000 on an encumbered line that was unspent.
You're correct, you're right,
So,
but as part of the.
Wait,
Stop with that. It's
That's
not.
not fair.
It is
It
not
was-
unspent. It is
But
accounted
it-
for.
Yes, but it is, he's correct.
No, he's not. This
We
doesn't
used the
help.
services. We owed the money.
But in the
the
report,
monies were not spent.
on the
at that
report-
We had done it. We owed it. We just haven't gotten the bill.
Whatever.
but we showed it.
That's
because we
huge.
have-
That's how you're gonna fail again.
No, if you need to think. for a
I do
minute.
think.
If you
I
have a
think about
mortgage, you owe that money in the month. Even if you haven't gotten your mortgage bill, you still have to pay it. So when she says you're right, she's not being accurate. If you have gotten the service or used the gas, the electricity, whatever, you have spent that money and you need to pay it. It's back to her $50 in your bank account. Whether you know how to use a checkbook or not, Ralph. If you have $50 in your bank account and you write a check for $50, you do not have $50 in your bank account.
That's the
no matter
problem
what the
with
bank says.
encumbering monies that aren't being spent.
Wait,
have
wait,
to.
wait, wait.
Back all you want.
One at a time.
But you're not gonna convince me that there wasn't still $236,000 encumbered but not spent.
It was already, we had
But
already
We
used
already
that.
owed the money. We
All right,
just
can I
didn't
say
pay
something?
them.
Wait, go
I'll
ahead.
just say that in the end, everybody, in the end, it was still $400,000. Either on June 13th or June 30th, it was encumbered or not encumbered. We were still short $414,000. Encumbered or unencumbered, everything was paid for at that point in time, so it was still $414,000
Okay.
in a deficit.
At that time, did we owe the money to somebody because of services rendered? If
Well,
you-
there was a $4,000
If
difference.
you have somebody work on your house, if you have somebody build an extra room and they say to you, it's gonna be $50,000, and you say, okay, and they come over and they build the room, you still have the $50,000 sitting in your account. Do you have it or do you owe it? Somebody comes and you do work on somebody's house and you don't pay the bill until they complete the work, and you only have $50,000 and it's a $50,000 project, is the money, and that's all you have. You don't have any more money coming in. Do you owe the money or do you not owe the money? Just tell me yes or no. All I want is yes or no.
It's not going to.
The money was not
Do you
spent.
owe it? Do
It
you
was.
owe
Where
it?
was it owed?
It was owed
If it
to
wasn't spent, where
all
was,
the students.
where was it owed?
Okay, I'll tell you. It was owed to all the students that took services for special ed that we owed the money
You
to.
over-identified? 184,000 of it
Okay,
went
that's a
to-
different topic.
$184,000 of the sped lines went to new hires in support.
For
If
the
you
extra
hire an
students.
ABA tutor, it's a one-on-one. Why do they need support? Why?
I'm not here.
Because,
I am not a
because
special ed
you
person.
inflate the cost, you put the taxpayers deeper into
Yes.
debt, and it's the taxpayers.
You're just
First of all, hold on a second.
grandstanding, and we all know
No.
you're.
All right, enough, enough.
No.
Jesus.
Nobody comes to the board on how to run special ed.
When you're over-identifying students,
But again,
you're
not a board
running
function.
properly.
Okay. What's the bottom line? Tell us the bottom line again.
But
The bottom line, we're over
Okay.
by,
So at the end, the superintendent did a presentation at the last board meeting to show that our total deficit appropriation that we ended the year, deficit appropriation was $242,861.84. That was the total deficit appropriation, including everything. I'm answering your question.
Which
Okay.
means that all these low budgets and everything, we actually underspent our budget and got hit by the special ed thing. So we stayed within our means on everything except for the special ed that's federally mandated that we have no control over.
and how much was the special ed?
As I pointed out, there was, we had a positive balance on the 1,200, on the, everything wasn't special ed, and then we had a significant deficit on the special ed related lines.
Can I say that tomorrow in the meeting, that people need to speak concisely, they need to state facts, and they need to state them strongly and like they believe them, and not hem and haw, and not say, well, my superintendent tells me I can't say that, or go on and on and on. We need to stand, you need to say what you mean what you say, and stand behind it.
So,
It'll come off a lot better.
on that note, I was very, very, very uncomfortable with how it went the last time. I was
horrible.
basically I was humiliated, I was ridiculed, I was dismissed. I had a tremendous amount of information to share, basically that special ed is mandated by law. It doesn't even get to the board level.
One of the things that they said
I
was,
have,
Sandy, good.
We, every time, in my opinion, that we've met with the budget committee, and you've been there, we've stated that over and over and over again, that special ed is out of our hands, is federally mandated. I don't know how more clear we can put it.
But their response is, let's see what happens if we don't meet those laws. They say that over and over and over again. And nobody, I mean, they have spoken about the $5 strap that I stand beside. We can go find that video. They have said that they don't think that the parents of special ed kids in the school have the means or the, what was it, not the intelligence, but some other word like that, to challenge if their kids aren't given their legally required education. And then they always say, well, what's going to happen if we don't give it to them? So that's saying we know the kids need it, and we're not going to do it anyway because we want to see what happens. So they can play their little games, but it affects a kid's life.
On that note, so because one of the budget committee members think that you can change a operating budget with a warrant article by not getting a bus, we're dealing with a group that is not well informed. All of them, maybe some are, some aren't, but I have not even been invited to a right to know law as a new member of a budget committee, and I know that they have 3 new members, so I'm assuming they're not familiar with some of the right to know laws. But my point is, I don't want it to happen again. They were disappointed we didn't have an attorney, and like Sandy said, we said 100 times, we talk about the law, we're dismissed. I think we should show up with Gordon Graham on our first meeting, and I asked that to Jerry. Jerry came back and said he's not comfortable. I asked this a couple weeks ago. I wish we had brought it sooner so we didn't have to have a special meeting. And when Jerry wasn't comfortable with that, I asked Bob if we could ask Jerry to see if we could hold a special meeting so we could discuss having Gordon Graham so he can back up our statements. And then I asked Jerry how much it is, and Jerry has the answer to that. Ralph has his hand up.
Sorry.
No,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Ralph.
I think the pivotal point of the June 28th meeting was when you stated you had all the numbers. And almost immediately, somebody asked you for numbers regarding special ed students. And you stated then you didn't have the numbers, and it happened a number of times. So, to Jen's point, have all of your information, all your ducks in a row. Don't state you have the numbers and not have the numbers.
Did Tracy
See,
not have
now
them,
we do,
or did
though.
we not have them as a group? Because I thought that we failed as a group. Yeah, I clearly told you guys I was embarrassed after that meeting that it was the speak was political, didn't want to offend anybody, hemming and hawing, not answering. Accounting's accounting, it's black and white. When somebody asks a question, you answer what's on that sheet and what you know about it. I don't care who doesn't like it. It's black and white. You answer it. And when you know something's going to happen and you know that we need something, you don't say, well, this and that. The only thing that I can say you've ever stood hard on is keeping the teacher in the grade that we have difficulties on. Stand by our numbers like that. We
Oh,
need to
right.
be that prepared.
6th grade, she's talking about the 6th grade.
I know what she's talking about.
Okay.
I know she's talking about.
It took me a while.
That's okay.
Okay.
Oh, because we need to
Right.
stay. If we
No,
have our numbers and we're real and we know what they are, we need to stop being political.
Right.
And this is your job. It's black and white. It's accounting. It's not gray.
So my point is, I'm sorry, Sandy, let me just finish my thought, is we took an oath to represent the students in the district, and if we let them down at the budget level, we aren't doing our duty.
Right.
And I feel that we are in such an adversarial situation that we do know our numbers. I do know why we are no longer, first of all, we already know why we're not 414 or 418. I'll get that straight, Ralph. We know we took the 105. We're down to 347 is really what we were short. Very simple numbers, and they all came out that night. What everybody wants to know is, why did we get to use the unanticipated funds? And I have the answer.
Sandy?
Well, she mentioned, and what I was going to reiterate, is that we now have, the books are closed. We have our hard and fast rules. It's right there in black and white. There's no, I'm sure there'll be some humming and hawing and trying to, muddle the waters, but, it's in black and white, and there's nothing else we need to do.
Jerry?
There are no longer any estimates.
Yeah.
Everything's hard and fast.
Yeah, exactly.
And solid.
Ralph?
The
Ralph?
So, black and white, is there red ink or is there no red ink?
I have the answer. There is no red ink because the DRA only deals with the MS-25, and the MS-25 requires that you use all revenue, anticipated and unanticipated. And the DRA wouldn't work with us until the audits were done and it was final numbers. So this is why we had to wait till that point, which it wasn't June 28th because the 30th, the audit hadn't been completed. The DRA, once they did, and it goes right back to Barbara Lohman, who said way back when, if you're not in a deficit, you're not in a deficit. So when you add all those numbers up, you are not in a deficit. We have 154 left over, and that's all the DRA cares about.
Ralph?
So the DRA will also tell you to, during your budget process, and when you're preparing your warrant articles, they command you, the district, to break out what is separate from federal funding in your operating budget. And they tell you to what's raised and appropriated through taxation and what is in your operating budget using the federal fundings. The reason I kept saying that there was no deficit was because I sat on the budget committee for 5 years. I can help you people.
Ralph, you
Get
ripped
your
this up
points across.
one side and down the other at the selectman's office. Come on. At least accept some responsibility or ownership for some of your choices.
My choice is.
If you knew it
to
back
swap
then,
the
why
money.
would you have gone to the selectmen? And we had already been working with the DRA from prior administration, following the correct procedure because we knew what was happening at special ed back last August. But if you knew that, why would you blast this board at a selectman level? Why wouldn't you come to us and take ownership for your choices?
My ownership belongs with what I observe. And my reaction.
You
is
observed
your
that we were
action.
not in a deficit.
And I stated that. What else can I
To
do?
the selectmen?
I stated it to the budget committee, I've stated it to
Go
the
ahead.
numbers of people.
So the only reason we're not in a deficit on the MS 25 is because we used $200,000 of the warrant article that was approved in March. If we hadn't used that $200,000, we would be in a deficit.
And what about the unanticipated revenue? Wasn't that part of it too?
It was all inclusive.
So, but that's the money that I just want to clarify, because people who are outside of here
know, I have to-
are not listening, are not getting getting out of the negative was using the unanticipated revenue that the budget committee said we couldn't have, and we had a meeting and they voted and said we couldn't use it. If that was the case, we would have been in a deficit. But that was illegal, and the state called it vindictive.
Was it illegal? It was an RSA that we had to follow.
Okay, but we had to do it. It was a law to do
Can I
it.
speak?
Right.
So
Right.
when we first realized we thought we were going to be in deficit, the first thing we have to do is you contact the DOE. Remember I brought you that letter. We approved that, and then we went to the budget committee, and the budget committee said, we had to go to the budget committee to request permission under the RSA to utilize the unanticipated funds. Now, when we went into that meeting, we expected two things. One of two things were going to happen. Either A, they were going to say, go ahead and use the unanticipated funds, and we would use those unanticipated funds, and this would all be behind us. Or B, they were going to say no, and then we have to figure out how we wrote a warrant article. So once the budget committee said no, we contacted DRA. We had a conference called DRA, and then DRA said, and we explained what was going on. Well, why'd you go to the budget committee? Because we had the revenues, we had the unanticipated revenues, we knew that would offset the deficit. Well, if you have the unanticipated revenues, you have these revenues that are going to offset it, you're going to have a positive fund balance. You anticipate a positive fund balance. As we anticipate that, again, all the numbers aren't in yet, but we anticipate a positive fund balance. Well, if you have a positive fund balance, then you do not need to go to the town for another
But
warrant.
at that point, we were being told we couldn't use that unanticipated revenue. Is the key.
So then,
That's the key.
Yeah, so then I said, so again, I had a really hard time wrapping my head around it, Jen. I really do, because I'm thinking, we have an RSA that says you can't, you have to go to the budget committee. The budget committee said no. Long and short of it from the DRA is that if you have a positive fund balance, whether they're unanticipated or anticipated revenues, they are going to be applied, and you're going to end up you're going to end up in a positive on the fund balance. Again, that was hard for me to wrap my head around, because again, I had an RSA telling me we had to ask the budget committee. And so I asked them for it in writing, because this was, again, a conversation. They sent it back to me and said that if you have a deficit, if you're in the negative in the fund balance, you have a deficit, you have to go for a warrant article. So I sent back another response, said, is the opposite true? If we don't have a negative fund balance, we're in the positive, do we not have to have a warrant article? And they said, yes, that's true, you do not need a warrant article. and that's how we landed here.
Mine's real quick. Can I just say something that's so far back? The $200,000. We did not use all of the $200,000. We were actually only over by 46,000, okay? So that's why that $200,000, if you take $200,000 and you take $46,000 out, you have 154 left over. 154,000 left over will offset the taxes for,
It's gonna go back to the town.
correct.
That
Like-
gets applied to next year. It
Next
goes back to the
year's.
town, so
It
when we.
reduces the tax rate for
Correct.
the ensuing year. So we didn't act, it has to go to us, since we didn't use all of it, it does go back. So I wanted to clear that we did not use
We didn't
all of that
free spend.
$200,000.
We did everything
We only
tight.
needed 46 because of the, fortunately, the DRA said you must list all of your revenue. We don't care if it's anticipated or unanticipated.
And if we didn't have the $200,000 deficit appropriation in March, we would be going to the.
For
to the-
$46,000.
for the remit, yes.
Well, right.
Well, whatever it is, we would have been going for the deficit
Correct. Right.
appropriation.
Okay, thanks, Ralph.
So,
So I clearly stated that point on the social media pages. If anybody missed it,
I don't anymore.
I
It's so
can't do it. It's
frustrating.
been so
Because when you
hard.
tell,
All
when
right,
you
all
tell
right,
people
all
that's
right.
true, you
Okay,
can't argue
okay.
with them.
But I have been ears more than Yacker. And I can't recall who said that we can't use the, I don't recall hearing anybody say that we can't use the anticipated revenue.
Ralph, they
Wait,
voted, the
who
budget,
said
budget
The budget
committee
committee
voted
did.
us against it that night, that we were there, the whole point of the meeting.
On the 20th of June?
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole reason we were there was to ask if we could use it, and
I
they
didn't
all
understand
said.
that.
That was
they-
the- that was the vote.
whole, they voted no, and they said,
I
you
thought
need
they
to
voted that
be,
they
you
were
need
not-
to be.
I
Shit
thought that-
constantly.
I thought that they voted they were not going to allow the correspondence between the DRA and.
No.
No, they said you can't use your unanticipated funds, which some of which are Medicaid that they applied for and did work for to get. It isn't just, it's,
Doesn't make a difference. The point was, the permission was, they didn't agree for us to use any of the unanticipated revenues. That was the intent of
because
putting that letter.
I was specifically told at that meeting because we needed to learn a lesson. I was also told that they thought we should use regular ed money to offset the $418,000 of special ed, which would be at least 8 teachers in the regular education. 8, that's 20% of the staff. You cannot take away from special ed by law, period. The only control this board has, we can't take it away from high school, we can't take it away from special ed. The only area where you could pull $418,000 from would be regular ed.
Well, I haven't gotten through everything that I've requested for 91A. But
Gee, and
by the
that's-
time I do,
So there'll be no money left to spend on the kids by the time you do.
thank you for interrupting me.
You're welcome.
You're so pleasant.
I know.
You know,
You drive me
maybe-
crazy.
Okay.
I've got blood clots. Give me a break.
And your anxiety.
That's not what caused them.
All right.
The
I
blood
real-
clots-
Okay, so let's not-
You know what, hold- I do,
We're ready
I-
to speak.
You
do,
I'll
wait,
finish
okay.
the point.
So the purpose of this meeting,
is
So
to,
you're hot smoking into it,
to,
you know.
the purpose of the meeting that I called is, it started off with saying, I asked Jerry how much it would cost to have Gordon Graham there, or somebody from Kidder, Soul Kidder and Lauman. And because I did not want to poorly represent, or I wanted somebody there that could back us up. We all have the information, we know what we did, we know what we've lived through, we followed the processes, we followed the law, and I will be dismissed at the budget committee level in a heartbeat. He will tell me to put my hand down, he will not listen to the information from the school board, so I would, I believe we need backup. And I've already been told they are gonna ask us why we are in the situation we're in and about the DRA. So then I asked Jerry for costs.
Jerry,
Yeah, so a couple things. I had already planned on having Mr. Graham there at the next meeting when we're there with DRA, because I think there are gonna be a lot of legal questions that do come up, and I want them answered. What it will cost us is Gordon's cost is $250 an hour. For travel, they charge us from the nearest office. So while he's out of the Salem office, they don't charge us from the Salem office. They'll charge us from the Wolfboro office, which is, significantly closer. I can't tell you exactly how much it will cost because I'm only anticipating how long the meeting will be, but I think it's,
And we don't know what time we're gonna start anyways.
well, we know we're going to start, oh yeah, you're right. So we know the meeting starts at 6:30.
Jen?
So I think what we need to do before we worry, and yes, I understand that that's a big chunk of change, and to us it sounds like a ridiculous amount of money, but that's what they get. We need to decide. We accept the fact that this is what these lawyers make,
Yeah.
and that those are our lawyers. So at that point, we need to decide: is it to the benefit of the kids in our school that we are well represented at this meeting, and will we lose more by not having them there than it's going to cost us to have them there? Do you see what I mean? So that we can't do anything about the hourly rate.
Do we have a monthly stipend that we have to pay them?
We do pay a retainer of $500 a month. So
Have-
every month, regardless of whether we use it or not. So
Have
that-
we used it for August?
We've done a little bit in August.
So there is some money left that we would have to pay that we didn't actually use their services for?
Correct.
Sandy?
My biggest fear is we only have 10,000. Is that correct?
Yep.
For that, for the 2000 FY20 year. I understand your concerns.
Actually, I have one more thing I'd like to say.
Can I finish that first? I understand your concerns, I really do. I've lived in this town for 11 years, knowing over that, probably 15, 16 now. I'm not sure that having a lawyer there will make any difference. We have our if we knew that when it was gonna start, if we could say, my fear is that we'll say, okay, we'll have them come, an hour into it, and
Okay.
it'll be done.
Actually, I
And
would like to
then-
interrupt for a second. Two things. I'm not really sure I'm gonna go up without one, and the alternate's Ralph. So,
That was funny.
so I really don't. I've been through too much. I've
right,
been
that's
beaten
enough.
up way too bad on the budget committee.
Yeah,
And the other thing is, every April and every September, we get our checks of $500 because it's $1,000. So in September, my check is due of $500 and I'm donating, but only to an attorney at the budget committee hearing, at a budget committee meeting. I'm donating it, but only to that particular line. I think it is that important to defend the kids and the district of this school. Thank you.
Ralph, you had your hand up first.
Why,
Can I say-
why are we afraid of
sorry.
the black and white numbers that we have to present to the budget committee?
They don't hear them. We're not afraid of them at all.
No.
They won't hear them, they dismiss me, they ridicule me.
Well,
And they
maybe-
humiliate
maybe
me.
The dimwit should speak for you.
You don't
The
take our
dimwit?
part. You don't, when the board gets together, Tracy will listen to what everybody says, and even if she doesn't quite agree with something, she will go with what the group decision is. You don't do that. You continuously don't do that on Facebook.
Oh, you
How do you
brutally.
say-
Let me talk
Point of
first.
order.
Let me talk. In the past, if I remember right, the BA helped us out at all those meetings for that. Why can't she talk? I don't understand that. The BA's always had something to say, that they
I
asked the
can't
question.
answer legal questions in reference to,
But you can give them the
I
facts.
can, I can give them the numbers. I cannot
Okay.
answer legal questions.
I have an answer.
Answer legal questions around what happens if we don't comply with the special ed IEPs. I can't answer those
Alright,
Okay,
questions.
I do. I'm sorry, you're right, Bob. You're right, I'm sorry.
So there's just
So,
certain things that
so
I
you
have
can give them the
limitations.
facts if we need
I
that.
can give you them facts, yes.
I do hear that and I do see that they beat up on Tracy.
They beat up on all of us. They don't respect anybody at this table
But-
except for Ralph.
They don't respect him, they play him.
But, let me talk for a minute.
No.
But having a lawyer there is gonna cost us some money, and it's gonna look like it's gonna be over $1,000. The lawyer cannot talk. All he can do is watch. And then, yes, he may write a letter at the end of the whole thing and give it back, but that's gonna cost us more money on top of that. So I wanna support you, Tracy, on this, and I understand you don't wanna go up there without
I
one.
don't.
But I have a hard time okaying this because he can't do anything for us.
I believe at the last meeting, they looked at us and said, why don't you have a lawyer here? That was repeated by Howie several times. And Jerry has to go by what his board says. There are other people on the board that would want to hear what one of the leading school attorneys in the state has to say.
Could we get pre-approval from them to have a lawyer there that could speak?
From who?
The budget committee.
Yeah.
If they asked last time, and I don't know.
I mean, it's still gonna cost us, right?
Okay, but let's go back to the.
So you mean to say, so he can talk?
Yeah, are we going to lose more? We got trounced.
I would love
We
to have a
got
lawyer actually
trounced.
We
to
got
step in
trounced,
and,
Bob.
I
We got
understand that.
trounced.
I'm just looking at it as a dollar, and again, I wanna
I get
support each and every one of you guys, but I'm saying, if we're gonna spend $2,000, I'm just throwing out a stupid number, if we're gonna spend that kind of money, and he can't do anything for us, why are we gonna have him there?
But he could.
But if they allow him
could.
to speak, can we find that out? Sandy?
My thing is, I understand Tracy's wanting, and I think it's, and, you know, I think it's a good idea. My problem is, we don't know when they're gonna see it. Can we have them, can we request that we go first? Because our portion's gonna be so much, I looked at what you sent, and what they're going over is gonna take a lot longer than what supposedly ours should be. And for us to have a lawyer sit there for who knows how many hours before we come. And
If things were reasonable.
I know that people are watching this, will be watching this, but my feeling is that we bring the lawyer there and I can see them drawing it out, their portion, just to see us squirm. And we're losing money.
And
I
isn't
mean,
that
that's
a
not
shame
fair.
that one department of our town would do that to the other department
But I've
at
seen
the
it.
kids'
I've
expense?
seen- that's my
But
feeling.
that's shameful.
It is shameful.
The personal stuff has to be taken out of this, for everything that we do. It really has to be taken out from budget committee to school board and back and forth. In the school board here, we have to take everything personal out of stuff. We're all here for the same thing.
We're not really, some of us are.
No, we are. I hope.
I
Ralph
think
had his
it's-
hand
I
up
think you
first.
did.
I was just curious when this board has had the experience of me not speaking for the board at any kind of public meeting.
Facebook is a public forum.
Yeah, we
You
are, we
slam
can't
us
go.
all.
I'm just
We've
talking.
been told about other meetings where you called me a socialist at a meeting. People came and said,
Let's just not talk about that, just to the
Well,
point.
he asked,
To the
he
point,
asked.
to the point.
So, here
Yes.
we are in a new budget season. We have an opportunity to discuss our budget with the budget committee. That's all they're asking us to do. I don't know that they're
They're-
saying,
they're
what,
gonna-
why are we afraid of what happened on June 30th? We started a new
We're not
season.
talking.
Ralph, you didn't,
You finish, Rob?
If I don't know what the meeting is about, it's because I haven't gotten the information from the school board or the administration. As far as I know, the budget committee is meeting to discuss what's going on currently. It's not gonna
I
meet
thought it was.
to discuss what happened before June
I
30th.
believe that's a true statement.
but you
I thought
learn
it was
from the
original.
past.
Huh?
From,
Supposed to be.
Yeah.
Do we not learn from
really?
our mistakes? Is that not something that humans are supposed to do? And we got trounced. Can you see that any other way?
I was there.
Okay, so you need to prepare for
So,
that.
Again, I think it goes back to personal attacks on each other, and it just gets out of hand. And if everybody would just play their role and be professional, I think it all can work out for the town.
We were all
and the
quiet because
school.
we weren't allowed to speak.
I understand
Tracy
that.
didn't
I understand
attack
that.
anybody.
ever. On
I'm not saying
Facebook,
that.
I have never attacked anybody. I have never bullied anybody.
She
I
speaks
have
well
been
of those people
vilified.
individually.
I have been attacked. I have been bullied on Facebook because I represent
on
the
camera.
school board. And
That's
want to hear
that's
something?
just the town.
Okay, but hold
No,
on.
no, on
one
camera
will
they do
run.
this.
I have tried to approach people that have come up to me that said, "Oh, thank you, for sticking up for the kids."
It works
and-
both ways. It
but
certainly does.
They won't run. They will
Sandy?
not run in this town because they don't want to be hit on Facebook. I have said flat out, I will never go in front of that budget committee. So we're losing very good people to run for the school board because we are allowing ourselves to be trounced.
Sandy?
To answer your question about, you were thinking they're talking about the FY20 budget at tomorrow night. That's not the impression I got. The information that I saw that was sent to all of us was about last year's budget you know, all the departments in town. It had nothing to do with the FY20 budget. It was last year's. So I was under the impression that we were gonna still be rehashing about what we owed.
I don't see why they'd even be concerned at this point. They know that the $200,000 warrant article covered the deficit. They know that. So business is done.
Well, I
This
think
is
that,
the
I think
year
the
that they're
biggest,
talking about.
I think my biggest concern, and I think, I'm not speaking for the board, but this is what the impression I get, is that they, in June, end of the June, the meeting, end of June, they purposely said that none of our revenues could be used to offset the deficit in special ed. And I think this is a rehash tomorrow night of this.
That may be a true statement, because special ed is separate from,
But it isn't, Ralph,
Actually,
it's part of the budget.
I have a bit of information. I was told by the town administrator that we will be asked to explain why we went from 418,000 to minus to a plus of 154, which I'm prepared to do. And the other thing is, if they start to beat up on us again, the budget committee, were you not told that we could get up and leave?
That was Gordon Graham, correct. He said that the meeting should be a give and take, that it's not, just one side making all the comments and minimizing the input from the school board, and if they were disrespectful, that by all means, the school board could just walk out.
But I would need to know when you decide to walk out, number one. Number two, the $500 is for this meeting coming up, and specifically for the attorneys to offset the cost of the after that, I'm gonna pick and choose. I'm gonna use it for one of the meetings. I do not appreciate the disrespect that the budget committee has for the school board, and I do believe that we need to establish that we do our homework, we do our research, we are educated, and we try very, very hard. And allowing ourselves to be trounced time after time after time is gonna set a very, very poor
Standard.
for our ensuing budget committee season. So if it's $1,000, we offset it by 500. Again, you said they would give us, it sounds like they tried very hard they said they would use the closest city, which is Wolfboro, that they have an office to get here. So they would use our $500 that you have to pay every month anyway to offset the cost. It sounds like they were trying very, very hard to get the representation that the school board needs.
Correct.
So
But we have no idea what time that we're gonna be up.
Which is actually another question that I wanted to ask the board. I'm tired of being last. How about you guys? We have an issue with our employees that they cannot come. They are hourly by law, not hourly, and it helps offset the costs to the taxpayers. So can we not be gracious?
Can you make a phone call?
Well, and it needs to,
Regarding?
Ask them if we can be first, because we're gonna have a lawyer there, possibly.
and to help us save money.
And to save money with the part-timers that
Work together.
have limited hours.
So it is about,
Sandy?
it does clearly say that.
yeah.
I don't believe that.
It was emailed to us. My thing is, so the retainer we have, the $500 retainer, can part of that money be used towards this? Is that what Tracy was saying?
Yes. Wait, what'd you ask me?
The $500 a month retainer that we have with them, can that be, if it's not used, can it be used towards them coming to the meeting?
Yeah, it
Or is
sounds
that
like it.
outside
Yes.
of it? Okay, we can.
Yes.
Yeah, the retainer is for routine legal matters. The way he explained it, we end up going to litigation, that around the same
Now,
thing, it
does
would
that
not be
500, if you don't
considered
use all that, does that
routine.
transfer to the next month and add to the 500, or is it just 500?
I believe it's a $500
Flat each
retainer, or
month.
Each
$500 a month
Month,
retainer.
okay,
If
okay.
you use it, great. If you don't, well, that's your $500
insurance.
retainer.
Yeah.
You have it, but it's gone.
So you don't lose it, do you?
Yes,
You
it's like
lose it, it's a
insurance.
$500 retainer,
Yes.
so you have it, so
Yes.
if you end up using it, well, you go, say you
doesn't
spend
carry forward.
$600 worth
Right.
of fees, the $500 from the retainer, if that's typical and usury, then you only have $100
Okay,
above
I get
beyond
it.
that.
Ralph?
use it or lose it.
$6,000 a year, whether you call the attorney one time or not.
Correct.
That doesn't leave a whole lot of, I mean, so when you go through the budget process, if you think there's turmoil in the school district, it might be wise to say, you know, always look at the actual expenditures for the year before. If you
Disagree
know
with that.
that you spent
Absolutely.
$20,000.
You pick and choose. The first one sets the tone. Pick and choose, absolutely.
All right, want to take a vote? Tracy, make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to use the retainer fee to have Gordon Graham help us present our position at the first budget committee meeting.
I second it.
Any more discussion? Go ahead, Sandy.
I don't think we can put a number on it, but could we put that if it goes to 1,000, that's the cutoff?
Can I just,
Yeah.
what do you think we lost in that last, do you remember we went through all that, the budget committee, and Tracy had to take it on the chin, and we lost all that money. And if the DRA hadn't stepped in, we wouldn't have gotten, what was the number on the unanticipated revenue? How much was that? Roughly, the unanticipated revenue that they didn't want us to have.
What includes the $200,000, a little over $300,000.
All right, $300,000 that we wouldn't have gotten if the DRA hadn't stepped in. If we have to spend a few $1,000s to be able to have access to anywhere between that and just on the high end saying it happens again, $300,000, we need to be represented so that the kids get, it's like betting a little bit against what's gonna happen. And if we'd had a friendly relationship with the budget committee, we wouldn't even worry about this. But because it's like how much you're gonna spend, again, it's like insurance. You put out this much so that they don't come take your house. So having a lawyer there is like putting out this much so they don't take everything we have.
Jen, I hear you, and I understand you, and I agree with you. But can he do anything for us?
That we need to find out. And might it be educational to have him there so he can tell us what we need to do next time?
I will continue to say what the budget committee needs to understand is that we have information, we can be believed, we have backup with attorneys, and he's sitting right there. If they don't even let him speak, I am going to say, and my information can be backed up by Attorney Graham, and my information can be backed up by Attorney Graham that we have paid to be here. I am going to
We can talk to
use-
Attorney Graham first to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, of course. Or I would like to back up my information with Attorney Graham. That's a good point. I would like to, who is sitting right there. And I do believe they will let him speak. Howie wanted one there last
Can I
time.
just go, Cindy, I just want to say there's a reason I asked Attorney Graham as well, is, he's written several articles regarding New Hampshire budgeting and about overspending, being able to legally overspend in special education. And there's a reason he was the choice, and not going to Barbara Lohman or Mike Eller or someone. They're all very good attorneys, but, Attorney Graham has a specific skill set.
Sandy?
I'm on the fence. I mean, I think it's good, but like I said, I've lived in this town too long.
What does that mean?
I've lived here long enough, and just people that they think know more than them, they shut it off. They
But
find
not
out
this group, because you've got
Not
CEOs.
us.
No, the budget committee. These people, I understand what you're saying. I had a legal issue once. We brought a lawyer, and it went awry because we had someone there. But this isn't an unintelligent group of people. These aren't like what. They're Denny and
Denny's not there any
well, what's
longer.
the?
Actually,
I'm trying to. I get them confused.
I'm
Howie.
not really
thank
sure.
you.
Actually, truth of the matter is, the more I hear them speak,
Yep.
that they don't understand.
They may not understand it, but they're not intelligent. So if they don't listen, they don't give Tracy a chance.
I know that.
And having the lawyer there might be the piece. I don't think they're going to be intimidated by that. I think they're going to be interested.
I think
by
they're going to
that.
use them as a resource. Yeehaw! These guys have to pay the lawyer that's going to answer all our questions. That was one of
Which is-
Howie's biggest
At least we'll get
problems.
there.
And the budget committee gets to vote on whether or not the lawyer, not just Jerry O'Connor, he can't say no, he has to take a vote. And there are many
Mm-hmm.
people on that budget committee that want the right answer.
Mhm.
So they're not all the same way. They they
I
will
agree.
vote, not just it isn't just the chair. He has to, just like Bob.
Sandy, understand, when I ran for school board, I didn't run to spend tons of taxpayer money. I'm on a tight budget and I own my house and I pay taxes. It was to balance the taxpayer dollars with what the kids get. But at this point, we're not, it's not working out.
I know.
And I'm watching those dollars too, because I don't want my taxes to go up. But you can't not do what needs to be done because you're afraid to spend a little money.
Well, the other
Ralph,
thing
let me have Ralph.
The presentation tomorrow night is pretty black and white, and it's pretty simple, and I think you're operating with a degree of fear that you don't need to have.
Ralph,
If
I
you-
have,
I'm so, just, may I speak, please?
there is fear. That was my point, sorry.
Go
You were
ahead,
right. You were right, that's all. There is fear.
If the explanation is there, we contacted DRA, we found out that we could use the unanticipated revenues to offset what appeared to be a deficit. The warrant article that the town passed was very helpful. We used 46,000 of it to help offset the deficit. We are now solvent. The deficit is no longer an issue. We're approaching our new budget season, eyes and ears on, hands on. We don't think that we'll have these problems in the future. We thank you for your time you spent on June 28th. We're ready to move forward.
We don't-
What can go wrong? Why do you spend?
Who would ever vote against the kids? What budget committee would vote against the kids like they did at the last? Whoever would have thought the budget committee of Wakefield would have voted against their kids?
Who would have thought it would go
That-
so badly
see,
before?
Who would have
Okay.
thought it would have been such
Wait,
a
hold on, one at a
massacre?
time.
Okay.
Why?
So that point, when you see, that's what the town of Wakefield is sick and tired of.
Right.
It really is. If you want to know the truth of the matter is, everybody wants to support the kids.
No.
No, everybody does. And
Have you read your post?
As long as it
year
doesn't-
after year after year, what the school district has asked for, the taxpayers have supported.
You know what? Actually, I do agree with you that the taxpayers support the kids. It's at a different level. I agree with you that the taxpayers actually, or the voters, very, very much do support the kids in the school. Absolutely. I think that came out loud and clear 2 years ago. So, and with the recent budget, actually, I do think that is absolutely true. I don't think it isn't at every level of our government.
So, may I finish my point?
Sorry.
The idea that we can just increase the budget because the taxpayers will always support it is finally catching up to the spenders.
Okay, you just went off
Please,
topic
please.
though.
No, I'm not
You
off
did.
topic.
That just went off, way off
I'm
topic.
not off. I'm trying to tell you what the problem is. I've lived here all my life. I understand how Wakefield feels
No.
and thinks.
You don't speak for
Okay,
Wakefield.
okay.
No, you don't.
Sandy,
Okay.
So we had a motion and second, right?
yep.
Can I make an amendment at this point to the motion?
One second.
And my amendment would be that, if we can be assured that we can get a affirmation that the, budget committee will allow our lawyer to back us up and have a voice, I would support it.
I'll second that.
I agree with that. So we have a motion with an amendment to it. Did you get all that? A motion, a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
All in fit,
I don't understand the amendment, so I have to vote against it.
She's basically saying if the lawyer can help us and speak, it'd be worth it to have him there. I have a problem if he can't speak and he can't do anything for us.
I think just being there is doing something for us.
We can always show them the video.
It's really sad to see such fear. It really is.
It
Do you-
is.
Do you
It's not
understand that,
fear, it's
Ralph, what I
learning.
just said? I said those?
We didn't start off this
Still in the
way.
negative?
Yes,
Ralph,
I
you
do.
cheered when we were, you
All
cheered.
right, what else we
Because I
have?
didn't
I have
see a
one thing.
deficit. Don't you understand
They
my?
voted
Okay,
us
okay.
down
Point
when
of
you
order.
cheered.
Wait a minute, Marie, good.
So, based on what was handed out, what the meeting is gonna consist of tomorrow, They're asking us to plan for scheduling meetings for next year, to present next year's budget, the 21 budget. So I'm asking that we're all here at the table, what does everybody feel would be, because they're gonna ask when we're gonna have our next meeting, and we're gonna present the 21 budget. And I'd just like everybody to be on the same page, that we all agree that we're gonna have the budget presented to the budget committee by, at least by around a certain date. And we're all at the table, and we all agree we're gonna do that, that's gonna be our goal. Because depending on what their expectation is, I wanna make sure that we can accomplish that.
I would like Jerry, you still to call Mr. Jerry O'Connell to find out if we can go first, on the purposes of having a lawyer there.
And working together, maybe?
Also, we have employees on limited hours.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be getting paid, well, oh, you mean
No,
these
no,
guys. never
I
mind.
mean that we have Ann
thought
that
you meant-
needs representation.
Right.
Marie is only allowed to work, it has nothing to do with salary, actually.
Right.
She's only allowed to work a
Was
certain
Ann
amount of
gonna be
years.
there tomorrow too?
Limited
I
hours,
expect she
and so we need to go first. So can we add that to,
So, can we talk about the prior thing for a minute? The prior meeting and what went wrong and how we could maybe address some of the
Can we go off
issues?
Agenda for this?
What's that?
Can we go off the agenda for this?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Isn't it on the, we don't need to.
Let's keep it brief. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I wanna hear it. I'm up
Well,
there, I
just
wanna
keep it
hear it.
brief.
So I think that we looked ridiculous in certain places last time. I want the superintendent to tell the business administrator that she can answer any accounting and number related question, that she must answer them honestly and what's based in black and white, and that we will not hear, I can't do that because my superintendent tells me not to. Because that was the biggest cop-out I've ever seen, and it made me really angry, and we looked like clowns. It's black and white, it's accounting, and you know what it is. So when they ask you a question, there's no finagling it, there's no twisting it, it's black and white, and you give it to him because you know what it is. And it doesn't matter what his opinion is, because it's still black and white, and it's still hard, solid numbers. That was a problem. And when we're asked the
Can I-
question, it's either yes or no. It's not, well, it's yes, we need it because of this, or no, we would like it, but we don't need it.
I agree with Jen completely. The only thing I will say is, it is very possible the previous administration put Marie in a very,
I
very
understand that, and I'm
tenable
asking-
position and was told not to speak.
And I'm asking right now to clarify that she's not in that position, that she is the BA, and she knows those numbers better than anyone, and she
That's
is to
why I asked
answer the
if
questions
she
black and
can
white.
speak on this, 'cause she
So
can-
you're not talking about me, I didn't.
No,
You didn't do
Jerry
it.
did
What, when you're referring, when you're
Right.
pointing over this way, I'm thinking,
No,
and let me
I'm
finish,
asking
let me
for
finish.
you.
I'm just saying that, I'm
No.
thinking, when did I say that?
No,
And
no,
then-
it wasn't you.
I have no problem with Marie answering questions, you know, as long as they're solid. You know, again, if, I don't wanna ever go on the record as saying, this is what it's going to be when we have an
But she
estimate.
knows that number better than
Very
everybody,
well.
and if,
She does a great job
if
guiding
it's
me.
an,
You don't
if
have
it's
a
an
problem with that,
estimate,
right?
she could say it's an estimate.
No.
But her hands were tied by prior administration,
that's-
that wasn't you,
No,
but I want
that's
it
fine.
here,
That's all-
clear.
all-
That's,
she can
that's
answer-
fine, Jen, I just wanna make sure, when you were waving over this, I'm going,
No, I want you to tell her in front of all of
You
us
don't
on
have
the
to.
camera that when she's asked a question, there's nothing political about the answer. It is accounting. It is black and white.
Board would support you.
Go ahead.
That's right.
I don't disagree with you at all.
Getting back to Marie's question, because we've gotten off track.
Yeah, but you said we could.
Because of,
We asked for off track.
Brief.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Well,
Thank you.
Opened you up.
Thank you.
well, my thing is that you've done budgets, not only this district, other districts. What kind of schedule do you feel is comfortable for us to work as a school board to be able to be prepared for at our first meeting with the budget committee? What do you think works for you?
So, I've worked at some other districts, you're correct, and each district has its own criteria and expectation. So, I came into this district new last year, and I had no control over when the schedule was happening or when the budget occurred and so forth. I just want to clarify, I want to thank the board for supporting me this time around. And I just want to be also clear that the current administration, there is no conflict there, or there is, no gag order per se to speak. That's not.
We're making sure, that's all.
I just want to make sure that's clear. So that's not the case right now. So that's why, based on what happened in the past, lessons learned, what happened last year, I had no control about what happened. And I don't want control, I just want everybody to be on the same page. What is the expectation? We will work very hard to get done whatever the expectation is. We just don't expect it to be, it's something that we can accomplish. So, to me, having a budget ready in September is not realistic. We're just getting staff all together, we're still getting information together. Even October is tight. I just wanna make sure we're on the same page. Sometime in November, towards the end of November, and I'm referring to the superintendent because he also has worked with this district
Sure.
for far longer than I
There's a
have.
big difference referring to him and getting his knowledge than deferring to him when you know the answer.
So I have not worked in this district, and I was not accountable for the budget last year or the prior year. So I want to go with a clean slate, and I want it to be successful this year. So that's why I'm posing that question.
All right, a couple more questions, that's it. Good, Tracy, go ahead.
I'm actually just looking at the calendar, and October October 1st is the first Tuesday of the month, so the 15th would be the third Tuesday. Would it be possible for us to meet on the 29th, which would be another 2 weeks, to have at least a rough draft? Is that
October 29th?
October 29th, which means that we're meeting 3 Tuesdays, but there happens to be 1, 2, 3, 5 Tuesdays in October because the very first day of the month is a Tuesday.
Most of the time, it happens in November. Most of the time that the budget gets presented to the school board, because there's a lot of work that goes on in the background. Jerry, what has been the past experience here?
Yeah, it's been typical, as soon as school starts, we give the teachers a few weeks, and then we ask them for what they need. And it's a challenge for them too, because we're asking them to create a budget to
For a year,
replace
in
the materials
advance.
they haven't really got a
But
chance
you know
to
what?
spend yet.
It is what it is, so they need to do it.
I'm not gonna
understand.
be late this year. There is no way.
No,
So
we're
the
not gonna be late.
the next Tuesday is actually the 5th of November, and I'm not comfortable going beyond that. Are
Right, we
you?
need to have it done by then, so that at least if we have to tweak something.
Ralph has his.
Ralph, I see.
So, in the past, we've had months, usually the second meeting of the month, we've talked about the budget as part of the normal agenda. And I would recommend that you ask the budget committee what they expect the school district to do, and when their timeline, what their requirements are for the school district. Because if you show the budget committee that you're interested in their direction, whether you really want it or not, play them.
I don't want to interrupt you. I'm trying really hard. The budget committee actually gave us a list, and the superintendent blew right through it. They did give us a list. The time we were supposed to bring our budget to them, we were told that it's a work in progress and it didn't have to be finished. And mind you, we'd only gotten it the previous Tuesday to see anything even remotely close. So we actually had an emergency or special or whatever you want to call it 24 hours later to put, it was awful,
So
to be
we should-
perfectly honest.
Let's reference that.
We are.
Last year's, what they wanted last year, let's use that as a guide or somewhat. But tomorrow night, take the time and ask the question, because if you have the budget committee.
I agree.
thinking they-
I agree. I think we need to work together.
Okay, I do, but I don't know.
Sandy,
Well, since last year was, for most of us, was our first time doing a budget, we know when the budget committee had their first meeting for the budget. Why don't we don't know what they've chosen for this year, but we can use that as our guideline for us for this year, that by a certain day, by November, whatever.
Well, I'm just making sure that, if we ask the budget committee, and they say they want it September 1st, are we all gonna agree we're gonna give it to
No.
them? That's
They-
my
no,
point.
it's
We need to
unrealistic.
meet,
They won't do that.
I'm just giving an example. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what they're gonna happen.
They won't.
That's why I'm asking if we could realistically determine you know, what would be appropriate, and we be successful, because we don't want the same thing to happen that happened last year.
Okay. I would like 2 Tuesdays to go to review it before it's due. How about we work it backwards? I don't want to be just given 1 week like we were last year. That was horrible, and it wasn't even finished. Go ahead.
I've been looking at, thinking about the budget, and there's certain things in our budget that we always know. You know, one is staffing and what that's going to do. We know that usually for maintenance, there's certain things that are set. You know, there's a little fudge from that we have to do. Those maybe be done up first and spend more time on the things that we know are not etched in stone.
So one of the things, can I speak? So one of the things that we found is that the last 2 years' budget has not been presented or has had some omissions on it. So there's gonna be a lot more work to bring the budget to where it should be. And we're doing due diligence, that we're accounting for every invoice that we're getting, that it's budgeted in this year, so that we budget appropriately next year, because we don't know what we don't know. It's a new school district, it's a new SAU office, there's things that got missed, and we're trying to get that. So, that's why I'm saying there may be, we're trying to do the best we can to make sure that we don't repeat past practice or, you know, lessons learned. So, yeah, I'm looking out for the district, it's not about me. You know, I know I have limited hours, but people know that I put in a whole lot of hours here. And at the end, I'm gonna have to take a lot of vacation time because I can't be here. So, we'll do whatever it takes, but we wanna make sure that what we give is accurate, and we could substantiate what we're doing and why those changes are occurring, because I don't know if that's been clear in the past couple of years.
Well said.
And again, to Ralph's point, he made it earlier about, you know, basing the budget on actuals, not, you know, just continuing to, you know, to scale it back to make it fit, really. You know, I see our role as making sure you're aware of what the full and actual costs are to run the school district, not to pigeonhole a number and to make it, we may have to do that at some point, but I think it's important for you to know exactly what the actuals were that were expended year before.
Ralph?
I think four opportunities to work on this budget before a final presentation would be advantageous to the school
Yeah, I
district.
agree.
Whether
Right,
it's-
I agree.
Whether it's the second meeting
Yeah.
of the month, you know,
Or
brief
if we have to
discussion.
put another maybe.
Maybe the second meeting of September, we can work those fixed numbers that we understand. And maybe the second meeting of October, we can do projections, you know. But I think by Thanksgiving, we should have a pretty good grasp on.
That's a good deadline. That's a good deadline, right before Thanksgiving, but, you know, we're already, next week is already September. I don't know, I really honestly, I can't guarantee that I'm gonna have something, a draft, the second meeting of September. I honestly, I could get the staff probably in there,
But
but,
you maybe
Can you-
give
can
us an
you
outline.
Bring what you can bring.
okay.
Or
Hey,
even
give us an
if-
outline.
even if it's
Great.
2 consecutive meetings. I mean,
Right.
I'm not saying it has to be the second.
So they should be just on the agenda going forward.
Yep.
But what is the
Okay.
commitment that we're going to give the budget committee? That, I mean, if
We're
they're
gonna-
asking us for a timeline for the budget meeting schedule, now we're talking about what the school board's gonna present to the budget committee.
Wasn't it November last year?
Yeah, that's why I
Sometime they
was-
wanted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was November, that's why I
Yeah.
picked November 5th
Okay.
or the end of October, was because,
I would think early November, maybe mid-November would be a good,
I thought it was
a
due,
little.
I thought it was due
All
mid-November.
right, I think we have a good plan.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds really good. So let's,
But, you know, do it I personally don't expect you to have the whole
No,
budget to us.
it's not.
I would like the fixed costs, the things you know are fixed, that's pretty set, and because you don't have to spend as much time on that, whereas the other things you would. You know, like we know
Okay. We got
contracts.
a direction now.
And we know contracts.
Thank you for the
we have to
briefing.
say.
And one, I just want to clarify before we
One more thing.
because I feel like we're wrapping things up here. So I'm going to be calling Mr. O'Connor, and we have 2 criteria, it sounds like. Number 1, that the attorney is going to be allowed to speak, and that we are going first. if either of those don't happen.
But we can ask them if we can go first. I mean, let's be nice about
Oh,
it.
no, I'm gonna be,
No, no.
absolutely.
Explain to him that we're
I'll
on a
always-
tight
I'll always be
budget.
polite,
No,
Mr.
no,
Willett.
no demanded.
Just
We-
tell them we're on a tight budget.
I'm just saying, again, it sounded to me like we had two criteria. One was that we were going to
No, but if you
go
don't,
first, if we could go first, and the other one was that the attorney would be allowed to speak.
One of the reasons that we are bringing in attorneys because it was lacking on the last meeting.
And there's a-
And we would like clarification for everyone, including the budget committee.
because they asked for it.
They asked for it. So
Last
we'd
Wednesday,
like
yeah.
to provide it.
And what I would put in there is that the reason why we want to go first is that we want to use our attorney wisely. And if we have to sit there and wait, then that takes away from,
But if we can't go first, are we still bringing the attorney?
If he can speak.
if you can speak.
I just want to be clear. I just want to make sure that
Right,
we're
is
all on the
that
same
agreed?
page. So when I finish up with Mr. O'Connor, I can then clarify.
Anything
with-
else? Ralph, you got one more thing?
Yeah, the town will have their attorney there as well, so just remember, they're gonna consider that, whose attorney is, you know.
But they asked for him last time. They asked
They
us why we
asked
didn't
us
have
for
it.
why we didn't have it.
So we're trying to meet their needs.
Actually,
Right.
I'm hopeful.
Motion to
I'm hopeful
adjourn.
the town attorney's.
So moved.
I-
Second?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
You?